Hello, welcome back to the Risk on Investor. I've put together 5 valuation models for Bitcoin over the next 10 years, and I've created a free calculator so you can see how much Bitcoin you need to retire on. The valuation models are based on a mixture of my own work and projections by others. I'm going to present those to you so you can see which ones you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you think are realistic, which ones you don't. And then you can pick which one you want to use in the Bitcoin retirement calculator, which I'll show you how to access towards the end of the video, along with a special little bonus video, but we'll talk about that later. So let's hop onto the computer and we'll talk through the different valuation models.
So welcome to the Retire on Bitcoin models. I'm just going to chat through the 5 different models that we've got in the Bitcoin retirement calculator. I'll show you how to access the calculator and the sort of bonus video that I've prepared to go with it. So just before we get going, this is obviously not financial advice. I'm trying to project out 10 years into the future. We're never going to be exactly right, but this might give us a flavour of what's to come. I'd encourage you to do your own research and don't just take the numbers at face value. So the first of the valuation models, I'm going to go through the models in terms of the ones that start with the lowest projections going forward, and we'll finish up with the ones that give the highest projections for Bitcoin going forward. I'll just discuss each of them with you. So when you plug them into the valuation calculator and pick which model you want to use, you're using a model that you're comfortable with for your retirement calculation. So the first model is based on the daily active addresses on Bitcoin. So I've defined an active address as an address that's made a transaction within 21 days. Whether you agree with that or don't agree with that, that's just what I've used as a benchmark starting point. I've then used Metcalfe's law to value the network that Bitcoin is based on. So for those of you unfamiliar with Metcalfe's law, it holds that the value of a network is equal to the square of the nodes of the network. So using the active addresses, I'm using that as a proxy for the number of nodes on the network. You may agree, you may disagree with that. I've got an alternative valuation model based on Metcalfe's law later on in this video, but we'll start with the active addresses. So what I've done here is plotted the Bitcoin price in blue. The little red dots are data points of the active addresses on given days, months through Bitcoin's time. And then the thick red line is a rough trend line that I've fitted to those data points. So it's that trend line that I'm going to project out into the future to give an idea of Bitcoin's valuation. So you'll notice the trend line generally follows the depression periods of price in Bitcoin's history. So when we've got these big spikes up in price, the trend line doesn't do a particularly good job of following that. So if you're someone who believes we're going to have these market cycles of rises and falls, then you may see this as a bit of an underestimation of the Bitcoin price. So this is what that trend line looks like being projected out. And this data is all in the background in the retirement calculator. But you can see there down the left-hand axis some of the prices we're looking at going forward. So Bitcoin valuation model number 2 that I've taken is I've just taken an exponential trend line of the current prices of Bitcoin, and I've just, again, projected those out into the future. There's not really much to discuss on this one. It's quite a simple model. So again, if you think this simple approach is going to be just the simplest and most useful for your projections going forward, you can select the exponential trend line model when you use the Bitcoin retirement calculator. So this is where it starts to get a little bit more sort of ropey and the projections going out. So valuation model number 3 is based on the market cap of gold. So this is based on Bitcoin achieving that by the year 2030, which I've seen a few people bounce around. Gold's current market cap is around 13 trillion. So I've used that as the starting basis number. And then because we don't know the rate of adoption and the rate of sentiment in terms of how Bitcoin will be viewed as a store of value and as a replacement or a match of gold, I've just done a linear trend line heading out into the future. So you'll see that plotted on this chart here. And again, this data sits in the background of the retirement calculator for the gold market cap option of the valuation models. So valuation model number 4 is based on ARK Invest's projections for Bitcoin by 2030. So ARK Invest have a $1.36 million Bitcoin price by 2030. And you can pause the video here and take a bit of a closer look at their breakdown. They've broken down here where they think each of those sections of the valuation will come from for Bitcoin and what builds up that 1.36 million price. Because this data is based up to 2030, and I've done my projections going out 10 years, it's currently the end of 2023. I've just continued on their projection in the same way that I've done with gold, just a linear line, because we don't know which of those aspects that ARK Invest are assuming will build up the final value of Bitcoin. We don't know which ones will be adopted first, the rate of adoption. So this again is just a very rough and approximate model that will take us out to 2033. The final valuation model 5, is another Metcalfe's law valuation. But this time, instead of using just the active addresses, I've based it on the cumulative active addresses. So if an address transfers some Bitcoin, but then it doesn't touch it for another 3 years and then it transfers again, that's an active address, even though it isn't a regular active address. It's an address that still has made some transfers in Bitcoin. So this is the underlying data that I've taken to build this projection. Again, I've overlaid, you can see it here, the yellow line in the background is the cumulative active addresses, the blue line being Bitcoin's price, and the kind of thicker red line is a trend line that I've drawn out. This does actually fit quite nicely to the what I'd call the non-bubble data for Bitcoin, but it does, because it's quite an exponential model based on Metcalfe's law, it does project out some very high Bitcoin prices going into the future. So if I zoom out on the chart here, you can see going out to the early 2030s, it's huge valuations we're starting to get to for Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin retirement calculator is quite a simple model. You can plug in how much you want to spend, your inflation projections per year, how much of your Bitcoin bag you want to withdraw on every year to meet your spending requirements, which model you want to use of the 5 models I've presented here, and you can pick a retirement date starting from January 2025, projected out to 2033, so 10 years-ish from now. The model will then spit out what your spending will be per year based on your inflation assumptions. It then picks up the Bitcoin data that's in the background from these 5 valuation models and tells you how many Bitcoin you need to own by that date to be able to withdraw on your Bitcoin at the rate you've picked to achieve your desired spending outcomes. Now, when you're withdrawing on your Bitcoin, there could be a couple of different ways that you could do that. So you could sell your Bitcoin. That might be a taxable event in your country. So you might want to consider that in your withdrawal percentages that you're happy to withdraw. Alternatively, you could use DeFi, or there might be future lending facilities open to retail customers in the future where you could borrow against your Bitcoin. And that way you wouldn't have to sell the underlying Bitcoin if you think it's just going to continue beating wider market price increases for the next, 30, 40 years. You want to hold that initial Bitcoin. So it might be more effective for you to borrow against it. There might be better tax implications. So those are just a few of the things to think about when you're setting your withdrawal rates and what you're comfortable with. Have a play around, set it at various different values. I've put in anywhere from 0.5% up to 10% a year that you'd be withdrawing on your portfolio. So that's up to you. And it will just give you a bit of a flavor for how much Bitcoin you would need to meet your retirement goals. So you can access the calculator down in the link in the description. The link will also register you to get free market insights from me. So just once a week, I'll send out some market insights, what's moving the market. But I'll also include a bonus video for you, which shows how I'm earning some extra tax-free income on the side, around £1,000 a month at the moment. And I'm using that to supercharge my investments. So to get access to that retirement calculator, click the link down in the description and have a play around with it and see how much Bitcoin you're going to need to retire on. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.